Evening, everybody. Who out there does not absolutely love a juicy, tender, delicious steak? So whether it be a New York strip, prime rib, sirloin steak, beautiful ribeye, whatever your fancy. Um, this recipe for a topping for your steak, it's called Butter of the Gods, and it will take your steak, even your seafood. I've used it, made shrimp scampi with it before, but it will take everything to a whole new level and bring it to a new dimension. Now, I can't take full credit for this recipe because I've seen several different recipes on YouTube. I pulled part of this recipe from GugaFoods and tried his recipe with the cured egg yolk on top. I mean, to each their own. I'm not a fan of the cured egg yolk. But I have tweaked this recipe, so Guga, shout out to you. Awesome job, love your work, and I hope you enjoy this video. Without further okay, and as you can see, I'm getting ready to start prepping my veggies. One tip that I did want to give everybody is if you guys have a really slippery surface, one of these polyurethane cutting boards, what I definitely would recommend is either going down to the dollar store and getting you one of those non-slip, they're like the cabinet liners that are non-slip. They got the little holes in them. Or even simpler, if you're on a budget like I am, just take you a paper towel, dampen it up. You just want to wring out all the water, and if you actually put that underneath of your cutting board, now my cutting board isn't going anywhere. Okay, so now we take our knife and then we're just going to go ahead and start cutting our veggies for the Butter of the Gods. Let me try to remove some of these stems, and then I will come back to you once everything's done. Alright, so I've got most of it done here. I just got almost my garlic all the way minced here, and if you notice when I do garlic, I'll hold my knife at a slight angle, and I'll kind of rub the garlic as I'm chopping it, because it gives it a nicer mince. If you look, I got almost all of that done, and look at that, approximately 30 seconds, 45 seconds there. So really the only thing that's left for me to do is just grab together the dry spices, grab the bone marrow, and get the mixer out for the hand mixer for the whipping the butter up, and I'll show you how it's done, and we'll get it all put together so we can grill us up a steak and have some. So alright, so as you can see, I got the bone marrow. I had the butcher actually cut these into canoes, as you can see, and the difference is I did soak them in water for salt water for a day. Pulled out most of the blood and impurities from it. Big shout out to French's Meat Market in Scottsdale. I buy a lot of my meats there. They do an incredibly awesome job, but they were nice enough to cut these down into canoes for me this morning. Really awesome job. For those of you watching, if you're in the Phoenix, Scottsdale, Mesa area, definitely check out French's Meat Shop on Hayden and McDowell. You guys will not be disappointed, and their prices are excellent. Not a sponsored video before them, but just wanted to give that shout out. So I tripled this recipe, but the ingredients that I'm going to give you is per 8 tablespoons of butter. And to those 8 tablespoons of butter, you would use 1 to 2 bone marrows, canoes, however you like your flavoring, so you'll have to adjust it to your preference. In this case, I'm using 4 for 3 sticks of butter. So a half a teaspoon of cilantro and a half a teaspoon of parsley, as you can see here. A half a teaspoon of chili flakes, 1 lemon zest and the juice of a whole lemon, 1 orange zest and the juice of half of the orange. In this case today, I actually found blood orange, so we're going to use that. 1/2 a lime zest and a little bit of the lime juice, 1 small shallot minced, about 1/8 of a sweet onion minced, about 6 cloves of garlic. If you're doing the single recipe, it'd be about 2 cloves of garlic minced. I am using some Himalayan smoked sea salt. I went very, very light on this salt because of my special ingredient, which I'll get to in just a minute. It's one of my tweaks. Also, pepper goes in this, and also about 1/4 of a teaspoon per 8 tablespoons of butter of sweet paprika. One other little addition that I did with this, there's 2 other things that go into this. One of them is going to be anchovy paste, herbs de Provence, just to zing it up just a hair. So I use just a little bit of the spoonful, Trader Joe's spoonful, not a lot. Again, you know, you can play with the recipe to your preference, but this particular recipe has had vegetarians try steak and they can't stop eating it. But the last thing that I wanted to share with you guys that I really put in here that really amps this up and takes it to a whole new dimension is black truffle sea salt. And to that, I use about 1/2 teaspoon. You want to be really careful with the truffle salt, because you can overpower your dish very, very quickly with truffle salt. I mean, just opening the lid and smelling this salt, like, all you get is truffle out of this. So, but those are pretty much the ingredients. So I'm going to mix this together and show you what it looks like. We're going to get it logged up, and then I am going to grill up a steak on the smoker and see what you guys think. Alright, so as you can see here, the God's butter has been whipped, and I always whip it with a hand mixer. I'm not going to pull out the KitchenAid for something this small, but I always whip all the ingredients up. Now the secret is, the longer this sits in the fridge and ages, and all those flavors marry together, the better this gets. I mean, it's super good right now. If this would not give me a heart attack eating it by the spoonful, I definitely would. But the flavor on this is so incredible. You have the bone marrow, you have the herbs de Provence, the citrus juices, the onion, the shallot, the garlic, everything all works together in with this, and the chili flakes, everything all works together and it pulls together. And when it sits on top of that hot seared steak and melts and blends in with that steak, it takes your steak to such an incredible level. So what we're going to do now is, I got some parchment here. I got some parchment and some plastic. So we are just going to roll this out into one big log. Should have just pulled out my spatula, but too late now. I think I got it all anyways. Got almost all of it. So the rest of it I will use. So I try to kind of shape this as best as I can before I start to roll it. So that way when you do roll it, you can roll it right into a nice little log. And I always let a little bit come out of the lip, and then I'll roll it again, and then I'll roll it again. So we have a perfect cylinder here. And then I just take it in plastic, and then you can really roll it up tight. I'll show you what I mean here in just a second, if the plastic wrap wants to cooperate today. Alright, there we go. here. Take this, roll it again, put that in it. The reason that we use the parchment is so that it comes right out after it comes out. But if you just keep rolling it like this, this will actually start getting tighter and tighter. And the problem right now that I'm having is the butter's gotten so soft, it's hard to get it super tight. But that is tight right now. And the plastic's all nice tight. You can see how smooth that is. Super tight. We're going to put this in the freezer or refrigerator for about an hour. Okay, so I know it's a little bit dark out. You might have a hard time seeing. But what I like to do with steaks, this is a very thick ribeye, so this will be enough for 2 of us. I like to actually put it on the top right hand of the grill. Just salt, pepper, garlic, and put a probe in it. And I like to just put it on the smoke mode for about the first 15 minutes to let that smoke penetrate in. Once the smoke penetrates in, then I will crank up the sear mode to about 350, and we will have steak with butter of the gods. Okay, so it's been about 15 minutes. Got the temperature up. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to slide open the lever, and then we are going to put this down on the lower rack, right there. We're going to close the lid, and we're going to leave it for exactly 2 minutes. No more, no less than 2 minutes. And then we'll flip it, we'll repeat, and that should give us a steak at exactly 126 degrees. See you in a few. All right, so here we have the finished product, everybody. This is a nice thick ribeye. I actually pulled it at 127. Now, also one thing to note, ladies and gentlemen, it's very important not to cut into your steak right away when it comes off the grill. Why, you ask? So you want to let the protein rest, let all the juices redistribute back into the meat, and that will leave you with a much more tender and juicy steak. But you see the God's butter on top, it was basted with the God's butter while it smoked. 2 minutes on each side at 350 degrees on the sear function. And then again, I let it sit and smoke at like 100 degrees for 15 minutes before I crank that heat up and put it on the sear. But this is the final product, and I will show you guys a tasting here in a few minutes.